Hi, hello guys, welcome to this midterm presentation for the Google Summer of Code project for OpenMRS, which I'm developing. The project is titled Implementing the OAuth2 Support for Web Services API. I am Mayank, and the mentors for my project are Harsha and Suranga. So, here's what I'm going to talk about right now in this video. So I'm going to start with a quick introduction to what is the OAuth2 protocol and how the OAuth2 module will be providing support of the OAuth2 protocol. Then I'm going to discuss about what has already been achieved so far. After that, I'm going to give a demo showing the client registration process. The client is basically the application that is making REST calls or trying to utilize the web services provided by OpenMRS. And I'm going to show how to obtain access tokens in the demo. Then I'm going to talk about the goals for the summer, the remaining period of GSoC, and then I'm going to share some links and sources. So let's get started. So OpenMRS exposes its resources via RESTful web services. These include the modules like the Fire module or the REST web services module. It also allows external applications to interact with OpenMRS resources. So these external applications may be other web applications or open web apps or even Android or iOS applications. So in layman terms, if we think about OAuth, it is just a standard protocol for implementing an authorization mechanism. So there is some sort of security and reliability in these interactions. More technically speaking, OAuth2 is an authorization framework, and it enables third-party applications, that is the mobile apps or open web apps, to obtain limited access to the OpenMRS web services, which are exposed by our web services modules. And this can be done in two ways. Either the client will act on behalf of the resource owner or the OpenMRS user. This is covered by the authorization code, implicit and resource owner grant types. And the second way it can be done is by allowing third-party applications to obtain access on its own behalf. So it's not dependent on the credentials of the user. So this gets covered under the client credentials grant type. Breaking all that down into a very simpler and easy to grasp way, OAuth2 can be like thought of in three stages. So the first part involves client registration. When I say client, I actually mean an application, which can be a web app, open web app, or whatever, which is trying to make REST calls to our web services APIs. So the second process involves obtaining the access token from the authorization server, which will be the OpenMRS's OAuth2 module, which we are making. Then the third process would be accessing resources after getting the access token. So here is an image showing the first process, which is the client registration. So let's consider Bob, who is a client developer or an application developer. So he logs into OpenMRS and he fills a client registration form. So once he fills that client registration forms, we gave him a client identifier and a client secret. So these are the client credentials which will help us identify Bob's application whenever it makes requests to the web services of OpenMRS. So in the step 2, Bob's application will try to fetch a token from the OAuth2 module, which will be acting as the authorization server, and it will support all 4 grant types. So Bob sends his client credentials to the OAuth2 module, which then processes them and verifies if they are correct. If they are correct, then based on the grant type that is chosen, it will return the access token to Bob. So now once Bob has an access token, he will make a request to any of the web services APIs, and once the request lands to those modules, they will forward the request to the okay, this is not in frame. Okay, let's check it here. Yeah. So yeah, Bob's app will make a request to the web services API, and it's gonna forward, like, it would use a filter and forward the request to the OAuth2 module, which has a validate token method, which will validate the token and verify if it belongs to Bob. Once that is established, the web service, which could be the Fire module, will continue with the providing the requested resource to Bob, which is our client developer. Alright. So, what all has been achieved thus far in the summer? So, the OAuth module had to be built from scratch. So, the development architecture has been completely set up. So, it included a number of small tasks like configurations for Liquibase to create new tables in database, Hibernate mappings to read data from the database, adding transactions in the service layer, and there is a generic DAO for all the model objects in the OAuth2 module. And I've also like set up sample test data sets in the XML, which can be used for testing the client registration process for now. After that, I have worked on the OAuth2 client registration and management process, which was the step one in the previous, in the last to last slide, the step one which I talked about, the client registration process. So as of now, using the OAuth module, any registered user can create a new application and register that application. They can edit certain details for the registered application because the client identifier and client secret are generated and maintained by us. So the OAuth2 module will generate and maintain the client credentials. It will view all registered clients for the authenticated user, and it will view details of a particular OAuth2 client. So basically, it supports the CRUD, all the CRUD operations for the OAuth2 clients. The delete operation is almost there. It's just a REST call. It needs to be made from the front end. Okay, that was about the client registration process. For the client credential generation and encryption, the as we saw earlier, at the time of registration, Bob was issued a client identifier and a client secret. So the OAuth2 modules takes care of this. It will automatically generate the client credentials during the client registration process, and it will automatically encode. There's a method in the service layer which will encode these client credentials before displaying them to any client developer or any person who has the rights to view them. Alright, so let's take a look at the generation strategy for the client identifier and the client secret. So for the client identifier, I take the date and time and the locale at the time of registration. So that forms the client identifier. For the client secret, I use a secure random class instance and generate a alphanumeric code. It chooses 130 bits from a secure random bit generator, and then these 130 bits are encoded into base 32. So 128 might be is set to be cryptographically strong, but since in base 32 2 to the power 5 is 32, so we represent it by 5 bits, so the closest multiple of 5 turns out to be 130. So that's why I've chosen 130. For the okay, once these are generated, then before displaying them to the client developer, they need to be encrypted, and even the incoming requests to the OAuth2 module come in an encrypted form. So the encryption strategy is a bcrypt hashing function, and it's been using 10 rounds. That is, the strength is 10. So this is the same function is used to encrypt both the client identifier and client secret. So the database basically stores an unencrypted form, that is the generated form, and the client and applications, when they submit their client credentials for authentication, they submit it in an encrypted form. So the OAuth2 module also provides a matcher method that can be used to match if both these credentials are the same. Alright, the next big thing about the OAuth2 module would be the Spring Security and Spring Security OAuth2 project. So the Spring Security OAuth2 project is based on Spring Security, and it provides a good framework with a lot of code already written for implementing authorization servers, token stores, and resource servers for Spring MVC application. We plan to implement it into the OAuth2 module, or if there are some issues, then I'll try to align the development with this project as much as possible so that it's easier to migrate later on. Currently, I'm gaining familiarity with this framework, and I've been able to set up an external authorization server which is capable of interacting with the tables created by the OAuth2 module. So that external authorization server can act as an authorization server for the demonstration purpose as of now, but it will be integrated into the OAuth2 module over the summer. So now it's time for the demo. Hi guys, welcome to the demo. So currently we are logged in as Bob, the client developer, and here is the admin list extension point for the OAuth2 module. So Bob can manage the registered applications. So currently there are no registered applications for Bob. So let's create one. I tried to keep it similar to how OpenMRS manages persons and users. So the application name, let's say it's sample app, or let's say it's Bob's app, and application description, this is a test app, this is a demo app, and the website, I think I have got some previously saved. This is the redirection URI, and let's say it's a web application. So my details are set. Let's register this application. So once I register the application, I'm redirected to the view edit application page, and I also see the client identifier and the client secret which are generated. We can also now see this application listed among the registered applications for Bob. Okay, so I'll just copy these and I'll start up the authorization server. The authorization server, currently I've managed to put it up externally. The next step is actually to integrate it inside the OAuth2 module. So I'll just copy these. And I'm gonna copy the client secret here. So I'm gonna fire up my the OAuth2 demo authorization server. I fired it up, and it's configured on port number 8086. So now I'm gonna construct a request using the credentials that were generated to the OAuth module. So this this authorization server has some JDBC code which connects back to the OAuth2 client table that I created for the OAuth2 module. So it can use this client ID and the client password to authenticate that it is a user who has registered with us using the OAuth2 module client registration. So I'm gonna send this request, and it should return me an access token because the user is authenticated, and there we have it. So this is the access token which was issued by Spring Security. It was generated by Spring Security OAuth, and it also has an API for maintenance of these tokens. So this was a grant type which I demonstrated was password, which stands for resource owner password credentials. Although a similar request can be made for the implicit grant type to receive the author access token. Alright, so we saw how to register a client, and then we saw how to use the generated credentials to make requests to a currently external Spring Security OAuth based authorization server. So that's the demo. Let's continue with the presentation. So what I'm going to do in the remaining time is to integrate the Spring Security project into the OAuth2 module. So unlike the demo which we saw just now, the OAuth2 module will be processing the authorization and token requests. So in the next demo I won't be firing up any external servers to demonstrate that. So there are some chances of compatibility issues. So we'll try to work around that. And if it's not possible, then we'll proceed in a smarter way so that migrating to this project later is easier when we are supporting Spring 4. I'll be configuring the OAuth2 module for different grant types. Currently, we just saw the initial part of issuing token, which was the step 2 which we discussed. So I'll be configuring this for other grant types as well. Then I'll be providing an abstract filter that can be used by the web services modules like Fire and REST-WS so that they can access the validate token feature, and whatever request is coming to these modules, they can validate and authenticate the client. And I'd provide a good user guide and documentation to support this module. So these are the plans for the summer, and here are some links. I'll put them in the description so that they are easier to access. Alright, thank you guys, thanks a lot, and I hope everyone has a really good summer.